She thought it would be just another tough interview. But when Bill Clinton shared a story that hit too close to home, a live broadcast turned into a reckoning. Not for him, but for her. At 34, Morgan Hale had built a reputation as cable news's sharpest interviewer, a rare mix of poise and fire. Every Sunday night, her show Civic Truth pulled in millions. Politicians winced at the thought of sitting across from her. She didn't interrupt. She didn't shout. She simply waited, with piercing silences and follow-up questions that left nowhere to hide. Tonight's guest was someone she'd prepared years to face. Bill Clinton. The studio lights warmed her cheeks as the countdown echoed in her earpiece. 5 seconds, Morgan. You're live. She didn't flinch. Good evening, she said, her voice calm, composed. Tonight we speak with former President Bill Clinton, an architect of modern education policy, a global statesman, and for many, a man whose past still echoes into the present. The split screen appeared. Clinton was seated in his home office, walls lined with framed photos, soft amber light falling on silver hair and a weathered expression. He offered a gentle nod. Mr. President, Morgan began, you once said, and I quote, education is the bridge between poverty and promise. But 2 decades later, American schools are more divided than ever. Did the bridge collapse, or was it never real? Clinton didn't smile. He looked tired, but clear. Well, he said slowly, I think that depends on which school you're standing in when you ask the question. A few in the control room chuckled at the clever dodge. Morgan didn't. She leaned in slightly. Let's not spin, sir. Your administration championed the Charter Acceleration Act, funded the earliest AI grading software, and pushed public-private education partnerships that critics now say sold out our classrooms. If you were in office today, would you sign those bills again? Clinton exhaled. I might not sign all of them, he admitted. Some were ahead of their time. Some were not ready for the time. Morgan didn't blink. That's not an answer. And then, he didn't try to give one. Instead, he asked, can I tell you about a girl I met in 1999? Morgan hesitated. This wasn't on her list. She was in Little Rock. 5th grade. Her name was Taylor. Bright, soft-spoken. Her school had just gotten internet access through one of our grants. She stayed after class to send an email to her dad, stationed in Kosovo. Clinton looked down briefly, then back up. 3 weeks later, she was pulled into a behavioral flagging program because she didn't speak up in group settings. The software thought she was disengaged. Morgan frowned. What's your point? My point, Clinton said, is that I thought I was connecting kids to the world. I didn't realize we were teaching the system to label the quiet ones. We told them they had a voice, then coded silence as a flaw. The control room buzzed. One of the producers whispered, is he dodging or confessing? Morgan's fingers tensed slightly on the desk. She knew the answer. Clinton wasn't evading. He was unraveling something. She took a breath. Why bring that story here? Now, Clinton's eyes narrowed softly. Because your show is called Civic Truth, and there's something true you've been carrying, Ms. Hale. I can see it. Morgan froze. The studio air turned heavier. What is it you think you see? She asked, voice still controlled, but something flickering beneath. Clinton didn't flinch. A name, he said gently. Rebecca Hale. Your sister. Morgan's jaw tightened. The camera didn't cut away. You met her? She asked, suddenly less host, more human. I did, Clinton said. She wrote me a letter. 24 years ago. And somewhere off-screen, he reached for it. Morgan's world began to tilt. She had come prepared for everything, except this. The envelope was worn, the ink faded, but Bill Clinton's fingers handled it like something sacred. Morgan's voice cracked slightly. You brought a letter from Rebecca? Clinton nodded once. She sent it when she was 19. Said she didn't want anything. No press, no scholarships. Just recognition. For a program that helped her finish high school after she got sick. Morgan's spine straightened, the name alone enough to unsettle years of hard-earned composure. In the control room, producers scrambled, one hissing, "Do we cut to break?" Another whispered, "No way." Stay on him. Clinton didn't wait for permission. He began reading. Dear President Clinton, I'm writing to say thank you. Not for me, really, but for my little sister, Morgan. She doesn't know it yet, but she's the one who's going to change things. Morgan froze. Clinton paused, watching her. She went on. He said quietly. Wrote about how you'd spend hours fact-checking your teachers. How you'd ask questions no one else dared. She said you were loud when the world tried to quiet you. Morgan's hands curled into fists under the table. Her throat burned. She said the world wouldn't always like your voice. Clinton added, but they'd need it. The studio was silent. Not even the click of a keyboard. Morgan managed a single word. Why? Clinton's brow furrowed. Why bring it up now? On live TV? She asked, voice sharper than before. To disarm me? Win sympathy? Make headlines? Clinton didn't flinch. No, he said. To give you something I never gave her, an answer. Morgan blinked. An answer to what? He held up the final page of the letter. If you ever meet Morgan, tell her to keep asking questions, even when they hurt. Tell her I believe in her. The words landed like a punch. Morgan inhaled shakily. You don't know what happened to her. Clinton shook his head slowly. I know she passed. I know it wasn't fair. And I know she left that letter because she saw something in you that maybe you forgot. A soft alarm blinked on the teleprompter. Break in 30 seconds. Morgan's producer's voice crackled in her earpiece. Morgan. Pivot. Talk policy. You're losing the frame. But Morgan couldn't look away from the page in Clinton's hand. That letter, she whispered. She never told me she wrote to you. She didn't want you to feel indebted, Clinton said. She wanted you to stay bold. Angry even. She thought it kept you alive. Morgan looked down at her notes. All the research, the rebuttals, the clipped sound bites meant to trap him. None of them mattered now. Not with her sister's handwriting staring back at her across the table. Clinton leaned forward, lowering his voice. We both made choices that cost us people we loved. I buried mine under a presidency. You buried yours under this show. Morgan's jaw tightened, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. But her tone stayed even. You still pushed programs that hurt people. You let algorithms replace compassion. I did, Clinton agreed. And I regret it. But I also remember the girl who wrote me and said her sister would hold us accountable. He folded the letter gently. She was right. The red light atop the camera blinked. Break. Morgan sat frozen as the crew bustled silently behind glass. Across from her, Bill Clinton simply waited. Not for forgiveness, but for the next question. The studio lights dimmed slightly for the commercial break, but the air remained tense, thick with something unspoken. Morgan sat motionless, her cue cards untouched, the lines on the teleprompter blinking like a warning she couldn't obey. Across from her, Clinton folded the letter slowly, sliding it back into its envelope like tucking away a scar. Morgan's producer buzzed in again. You need to bring it back. Fast. Segment 3 is education metrics. Pivot to the tech failures. She didn't respond. She couldn't. She was no longer in control of the interview, and maybe no longer in control of herself. The earpiece crackled one last time. Morgan, are you okay? She wasn't, because Rebecca's name hadn't been spoken aloud on national television in nearly a decade. And now her words, written in a faded letter from a hospital bed, were reaching Morgan like a whisper from the grave. The camera light blinked red again. Back live. Morgan swallowed hard. We're back, she said, voice steadier than she felt. With former President Bill Clinton, who's just blindsided me with a letter my sister wrote more than 20 years ago. Clinton didn't react. He simply waited. Morgan leaned back slightly, choosing her next words not with polish, but with caution. My sister Rebecca died of lymphoma in 2007, she said. She was 19. I was 21. She dropped out of school twice, but went back when one federal program gave her a laptop and a remote tutor. I always thought it was just a random stroke of luck. She looked at Clinton. Turns out it had your signature on it. He nodded gently. Her letter was one of hundreds, but hers stayed with me. Morgan's hand hovered over her tablet. I don't know what to do with this moment, because I'm supposed to hold you accountable, and instead you're giving me something I didn't even know I needed. Maybe it's both, Clinton said quietly. Maybe accountability and grace don't have to live on opposite sides of the table. The crew behind the glass wall had gone still. Even the techs seemed unwilling to blink. The temperature in the studio hadn't changed, but Morgan felt warmer, like she was standing under lights that didn't just illuminate but exposed. She cleared her throat. All right, she said, regaining a thread of herself. You regret the blind spots in your education policies. Fine, but let's not pretend letters and sentiment make up for years of surveillance, tech, and classrooms, data breaches, and children labeled by algorithms. You were the architect. Clinton nodded. I was. And I trusted the wrong hands with the right tools, he said. I believed intention was enough. I see now it wasn't. Morgan didn't expect the admission. She didn't know what she expected. She stared at the envelope resting near Clinton's elbow. Rebecca believed in me more than I believed in myself. I buried her faith in me under a mountain of performance, of control, of this. She gestured broadly to the cameras, the desk, the studio built like a fortress. Clinton leaned forward. That fortress kept you safe. Until tonight. Until tonight, Morgan echoed. The silence returned, not uncomfortable, but loaded. Morgan broke it. So what now? We share a tear, wrap the segment, and let the internet chew this moment into a meme. Clinton gave the smallest smile. Or we turn it into something that means more than either of us planned. Morgan exhaled. Say I wanted that, she said. What does that even look like? Clinton looked straight into the camera now. It looks like telling the truth. On both sides of the table. The screen no longer felt like a barrier between them. It felt like a mirror. Two people facing their pasts, one through policy, the other through grief. Morgan adjusted the stack of untouched cue cards in front of her. They felt useless now, designed for control. But this moment had drifted far beyond structure. Mr. President, she said slowly, you said earlier that you trusted the wrong hands. But weren't you one of those hands? Clinton didn't blink. Yes, it landed heavier than she expected. I watched schools trade teachers for software, she continued. I've interviewed parents who said their kids were suspended by machine, flags, alerts, digital profiles that no one could explain. And most of it started with grants your administration approved. I know, he said. Then why didn't you stop it? He hesitated, not to dodge, but to choose carefully. Because I wanted to believe we were helping, he said. That access alone was the solution. That if we connected every child to the web, we'd solve something real. But we didn't teach the system how to listen. Morgan's voice dropped. My sister used to say, silence doesn't mean absence. Clinton looked at her, gently surprised. She wasn't the loud one. Morgan went on. I thought being heard was the same as being right. She just wanted to be seen. And was she? Clinton asked. Morgan didn't answer. Couldn't. Behind the glass wall of the control room, her producer gestured wildly. Wrap it now. Cut the feed if she doesn't pull it together. But she didn't flinch. She turned to the camera instead. I've hosted this show for 6 years, she said. I've grilled presidents, CEOs, whistleblowers. I've prided myself on staying in control. But tonight, that control cracked open, and inside it was my sister's name. The studio went still. She wrote a letter I never read. She believed in me when I didn't deserve it. And the man I came here to interrogate, he delivered her voice back to me. Clinton leaned forward slightly. That's the job, isn't it? For people like us? Not to be perfect, but to carry voices forward. Morgan swallowed. I don't know if I believe in redemption on television, she said, but I do believe in truth. And truth, Clinton added, is always unfinished. The segment timer blinked red midnight. They were off script, off time, and off message. And somehow more honest than ever. When the broadcast ended, the studio didn't move. No music, no credits, no applause. Morgan sat in silence, her fingers resting on the cold glass of the desk. She had just confessed something raw to millions, something unplanned, unscripted, and deeply personal. Across from her, Bill Clinton slowly removed his earpiece, but he didn't speak. He knew enough to let silence carry weight. Her producer finally broke through the haze, stepping into the room like someone entering a church. "Morgan," he said gently, "that was not what we prepared." She turned to him, her voice hoarse. "No, it wasn't." He hesitated, but it was real. Morgan looked back at the dark screen that had just broadcast her most vulnerable moment to the world. "I think people are tired of performance," she said. "Even me." Later that night, after the studio cleared and Clinton had quietly exited without a press team, Morgan walked to her office alone. A digital copy of Rebecca's letter waited in her inbox, along with a short note from Clinton's staff. "As promised, the original remains with him, but this is yours now." She opened the letter again, this time in full. Morgan always believed in storms, not because she liked them, but because she knew how to walk through them. She's tough. She won't tell you when she's hurting, but if you listen closely, you'll hear it in the spaces between her words. "Rebecca." Morgan pressed a hand to her mouth. The words hit different now, not just as memories, but as instructions. The next morning, she woke to chaos. Headlines flooded in. Morgan Hale breaks down on air. Clinton's surprise letter stuns national broadcast. Rebecca's voice, America reacts. The internet split, as always. Some called it manipulation. Others called it the most honest moment they'd seen on television in a decade. But Morgan ignored it all, until she found a message from a stranger. "My daughter doesn't talk much. She's been flagged twice this year for non-participation. Last night she watched your segment and whispered, 'Maybe I'm not broken.'" "Thank you." Morgan stared at the screen, heart pounding. That night on her show, she didn't invite a senator or CEO. She read letters from students, from sisters, from silent kids who had always been watched, but never seen. She called the segment The Quiet Ones. It became a movement. Weeks later, an envelope arrived. Real paper. Real handwriting. It was from Bill Clinton. "You once asked me why I brought Rebecca's letter to your show. I didn't come to be forgiven. I came to return a voice that never stopped speaking." Inside was the original letter, and a post-it note. "Keep it close. It belongs with you now. B.C." Morgan framed it, right beside her desk. Every time she sat down to speak into the camera, she looked at it first, not for approval, but for reminder. That control isn't power. That grief is a voice. And that sometimes the truth needs a stage. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe and press the like button.